So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Right now, we're joined by 5 classes from across North America here for our amazing Virginia Zoo hangout. So I'm going to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out. We've got Miss Dodson's group, grade 1, Redlands in California. Hi, guys.
Wave. Hi, that's us.
Hi, that's you. Yes. Sorry, I thought the wrong thing. We've got Miss Harris with Miss Coon's group, grade 4s in Bendo, Ontario.
Hi, can you hear us?
We can, I know. It's amazing the power of the internet. We've got Miss Wallach's, grade 2s in Arlington, Texas.
Hi. And we're in Arlington, Virginia.
Oh, sorry, what am I talking about? Arlington, Virginia, that is where Arlington is. We've got Miss Bendo's group, Miss Bendo's group, grade 3s in Guelph, Ontario.
Hi.
Perfect. There we go. And we've got Miss Lumen's group, grade 2s in Glencoe, Ontario. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today is for our amazing speakers. So we are joined live in Norfolk by the Virginia Zoo team. Jess and Stephanie are going to walk us or show us some of their amazing, incredible invertebrates. So without further ado, ladies, take it away, and thank you so much. Oh, yeah, you're good. Whenever you're ready.
I think I have a mic on for somebody, I think. Oh, there it goes. Okay, great. So, as he said, I'm Jess. This is Stephanie. We're here to introduce you to some incredible invertebrates. Thank you guys so much for coming out to your classroom and virtually coming out to the zoo with us today. The first thing that I want to say is that invertebrates include 95% of the entire animal kingdom. So 95% of all animals are actually invertebrates. And what that means is that they do not have a backbone. They don't have vertebra in vertebrate. So since we can't show you every single invertebrate in the world because that would take too long, I do have some pictures here to give you some examples of some invertebrates that you might not even think about. Our first one are things like jellyfish and corals and sea anemones. We've also got mollusks like an octopus, a snail, or a bivalve. Sponges are invertebrates. They're also animals. Starfish are invertebrates. They're in the echinoderm family. Earthworms, which you probably see after it rains, and then even the teeniest, tiniest little things in the world can be animals, and invertebrates also include plankton. And you might recognize this guy. He's a copepod, and he's a star on the show SpongeBob. So even though there are lots and lots of invertebrates in the world, 84% of all of those invertebrates are in the group arthropods. And arthropods are what we call our crunchy invertebrates. They have hard outer shells called an exoskeleton. They have jointed legs, and they also have segmented bodies. And some very famous arthropods that you might know of are things like spiders, crabs, horseshoe crabs, scorpions, and we're going to meet a few of them today. We're going to focus on arthropods just because they cover such a wide group inside invertebrates, and they're a really, really cool and diverse group. So we're going to start with our insects, which are our bugs, and Stephanie is going to introduce you to our insect.
All right, so we're actually going to tilt the camera down so you guys can see what we're holding in our hands. So I have a Madagascar hissing cockroach. So these guys are obviously found on the island of Madagascar. They are flightless, so they do not actually fly, but they are one of the larger species of cockroach. They do have, as an insect, 3 body segments. So you are going to have your head, you're going to have your thorax, and then you're going to have your abdomen, which you can see on them here. Now, these guys also have 1 pair of legs per segment. So you can kind of maybe see his legs on the side. So he has 1 up on the front segment, 1 in the middle, and then he has this back one down by his abdomen. Now, with these guys, they do what's called molting. So they don't shed their skin like a snake would or like a lizard would. But what they're going to do is they're going to grow their new underneath. They're going to grow their new exoskeleton underneath, and then they're going to actually just kind of burst out of that, and the outside is just going to look more like a shell. So they're going to be kind of soft when that first happens, So that's going to be when they're most vulnerable to predators. But within a short period of time, it's actually going to start to harden. Now, with these guys, there are over 1 million species of insects. So Jess said they are a very diverse group. These Madagascar hissing cockroaches are named so because they do produce a hissing behavior. They actually just exclude air from their spiracles, which are little holes kind of on the side of their exoskeleton. And that air makes a hissing noise. And that's one way they communicate to each other. So they can kind of hiss at each other. They have different varieties that the cockroach is going to tell what maybe the mood of another cockroach is by their hissing that they have. And another thing they do is live in very, very large groups. So this is a male hissing cockroach. So you can tell by these little humps that he has on the top of his exoskeleton. His head is actually tucked down underneath these antennae that he's moving around. But what they'll do with that in their big, large groups is they're actually going to fight with those humps. So they're going to fight with different territories. They're going to fight over females, and they're just going to kind of push each other around with that. So they're going to use those. They do use these antennae. You can see them kind of moving them around. That's how they feel their environment. So he's going to feel around and kind of tell what's going on, kind of touch to see if there's a place for him to walk. And then that way it helps him to find his food as well. They are kind of nature's garbage men. So they are detritivores. So they are going to clean up that forest floor. They are mostly a rainforest species. So they're going to eat all of those dead and decaying things on the ground. And then they're the garbage men. So they're going to pick all that up. They're going to kind of eat that. And then, of course, their poop is kind of going to be making no soil. So they are one of our helpful rainforest cleanup crew. So we do have another animal from Africa that's going to come out as well. So this is our hissing cockroach. And then our next animal is going to look a lot different.
All right, you guys. So our next friend is not an insect. This is a millipede, and millipedes are not actually part of the insect family. They are what we call myriapods. Myriapods are unique because they only have 2 body regions. So you can see, I'm going to get him as close as I can. You can see his head there at the very top with his antenna. And then the rest of his body is called his trunk. And those are his 2 body regions. He is still segmented like other arthropods. He's got all of these segments that go down that trunk part of his body. And millipedes have 2 pairs of legs, so 4 legs total, per segment. And that's actually one thing that makes them different from centipedes, which you might have also heard of. Centipedes are also myriapods, but they only have 1 pair of legs per segment, so only 2 legs per segment. Millipedes include things like roly-polies. This is an African giant millipede, so obviously from Africa. These guys can actually get to be up to 12 inches long, so a foot long. He's probably 5.5 to 6 inches long right now, so he could potentially get a lot bigger. These guys have up to 40 segments in their trunk, so that's quite a lot of legs, but it's not quite a million like we think of when we hear the word millipede. Their legs, usually they can get up to maybe 120, all the way up to 160 if they try really, really hard, but your average is about 100 legs per animal. So he is still an arthropod, so that means that he does still molt the same way that other arthropods do. So he's got this hard exoskeleton on the outside, and those exoskeletons are usually made out of a material called chitin, which we're going to talk about a little bit more when we see another one of our animals later on, and I think you guys are going to be really excited about it. These guys are also detritivores, and you might remember that Stephanie said detritivores eat leaf litter and dead things off of the forest floor. So he is also a garbage man. He's got a very, very important job in his ecosystem. And that is true for all of the invertebrates, all of the arthropods that we are going to see today. So some people see them and they think that they're creepy and crawly, and maybe they are, but they all have a very important role to play and a very important job in their ecosystem. And hopefully you guys will learn a little bit more about that when we talk about some of our other animals. Last but not least, arthropods are kind of diverse, so they all have very, very different ways that they defend themselves. So this guy, that the hissing cockroach makes a hissing sound, obviously. This guy cannot hiss. He is not a hissing millipede. What he can do is actually ooze out a really, really gross, smelly liquid that would probably not taste very good, and that tends to deter things from trying to eat him. It's definitely not something that you want to put in your mouth. It probably tastes terrible. So his main defense is just to taste really, really bad. That doesn't stop some animals. He is still a very important prey item for a lot of things, and that puts him at a very important part of the food web. If we didn't have millipedes anymore or cockroaches, our food webs would sort of build up with trash all the way at the bottom, and a lot of animals would lose their main food source. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more with our next few animals. I'm going to go ahead and put our millipede away, and Stephanie's got another animal ambassador for you to meet.
All right, so we're going to switch our drawers here, and our next guy is already down here, so I'm going to pick him up. And he is part of the Arachnid family. So this guy here is an arachnid. So they have 2 body segments versus the 3 segments that the insects did. So they have a cephalothorax and an abdomen. So the cephalothorax is where their head and their thorax are fused together. And then they have that big abdomen there. So now the arachnids don't technically have antennae, and they do have several well-developed eyes, but it doesn't mean that they have really, really good vision. So there's actually the jumping spider that has incredible eyesight, but most of these guys can't see very well, including the Vinegaroon that I have here in my hands. He's kind of turning himself around. So this Vinegaroon is also called a whip scorpion, but they are more closely related to spiders than they are to scorpions. Now, he is called a Vinegaroon because you can kind of see that little thing on the end. It's called a whip telson, and that is where he can spray a vinegar-like substance from. So that is his defense. He's going to spray out like vinegar. Now, he does have, it looks like he only has 6 legs, but he actually has 8 legs because he has 8 that are legs and 2 that have been modified to kind of be like feelers. So he does use those front as sensory organs because he doesn't have the best vision. So you can see that he's kind of feeling his way around and checking out where he can walk by putting his antenna out. Now, with these guys, they do have pedipalps. So they have that kind of claw-like front that you can see. And with that is what he's going to use for his food. So he's going to grab in some crickets or other smaller insects, and he's going to pinch those, and then he's going to open those up, and that's where he's going to eat his food from. So you can kind of see he's moving his front around right now. You can see him kind of opening and closing those. Now, with these guys, they're kind of in the middle as a food chain animal. So they are going to help control insect populations, but they are also going to be a prey animal for a lot of things. Now, they are found right here in the United States. So they are a southern United States animal, more like the deserts are where they kind of find them. They like that drier areas. And they can get larger than this. So this is about medium size. So they're going to get a little bit bigger. So now we have 3 different arachnids that we're going to show you. So we have different types of arachnids. So this is just one of them. But like I said, he is called a whip scorpion. So we have an actual scorpion that we're going to introduce you to as well.
All right, you guys. So this is our actual scorpion. Let's see. Here we go. I'm going to pick him up really quickly so you guys can get a better look at him. Come here. This is Horus, right?
Yes.
So this is Horus. Horus is an emperor scorpion. They can be found in Egypt, which is why we named him Horus. So these guys are true scorpions. They also have 8 legs, just like other arachnids. And then those claws at the very end are his pedipalps, which all arachnid species have. So scorpion pedipalps are converted into those very nice claws that he can use to defend himself. He's also got that really crazy stinger on his abdomen. Remember, we said that all arthropods have body segments. He's got his cephalothorax, which is the head region. And that is, I don't want to point because he might decide he wants to go backwards. That's where his head is. And then he's also got his abdomen, which is what his tail is attached to. Where are you going? So scorpions are kind of cool. We see them a lot in movies like The Mummy, or if you've ever been out west, you might hear that you need to shake out your boots. This guy, emperor scorpions, are actually known for being relatively timid. They tend to not like to be out during the daytime. They're going to be awake at night. And they also live in groups. So they have family groups that they live in of about 15 or so individuals. So they tend to sort of cluster together. Scorpions also have pretty poor eyesight. So even though they've got several eyes like other arachnid species, and even though those eyes are very complex, they are pretty, they've got pretty poor vision. And unfortunately, they don't make tiny little scorpion glasses. So they've got to figure out other ways to figure their way around their environment. And scorpions have two little sensory structures on the bottom of their tummy called pectines, where I know we're throwing out a lot of words right now. Pectines are basically like little feathers that they have on their belly that they use to feel the ground. And those pectines can actually feel chemical cues as well as mechanical cues. So they can tell if there is a rock underneath them, and then they can also tell if that rock has got any kind of chemical or scent from another animal. And the reason that that's important is that these guys are carnivores. So they eat things like crickets and other small invertebrates, other bugs and arachnids even. And they are incredibly important because they help keep that bug population down. So insects are pretty prevalent. They're everywhere. There are over 1 million species of insect, and I want to say maybe 60,000 or so species of arachnids. So arachnids have to work very, very hard to make sure that those insects don't get too crazy and take over the world. So these guys do a really, really good job of helping us figure that out. Do we want to? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let Horace climb off of me really quick. I am. I'm going to move this.
Oh, I was just going to have you leave the drawer and just move your in. But...
Okay, well, let's just do this. Let's swap. There we go. We got one more.
All right, guys. So this is our tarantula, because I know everybody's all excited about those. Her name is Elvira, and she's what's called a Chilean rose-haired tarantula. So they are found exclusively in Chile. Now, I am holding her right in my hands here, so you can tell that she is a calmer type of spider. There's actually a lot of people that have these guys as pets. They do use those pedipalps as sensory organs, so they have those 8 legs, and then they do have those pedipalps that they can kind of feel around. She was just climbing a little bit on my hands, so she also uses her tips of her feet as well as all the hair that she has on her to feel her environment. She can actually feel little slight vibrations and can feel all the different vibrations of where things might be. So what she's going to do is she's going to feel the vibrations of her food, and then she is going to ambush it. So she's mostly going to eat other types of insects. Here at the zoo, she mostly eats crickets. And what these guys do when they eat is that they actually kind of inject a venom into their food, and it liquefies the insides, kind of makes it like a smoothie, and then they suck that out. So that's how they're going to be eating. Now, she has those urticating hairs that she has all over her body. She also has those on her abdomen. With those hairs, she can actually take her back legs and rub them up against herself, and then she can throw those hairs. So that's a defense that they have, because those hairs kind of feel like fiberglass into whatever they stick in. So she's going to kind of shoot those at things, and then they're going to want to kind of figure out how to get them out of their face instead of worry about eating the spider. Now, they do have poor eyesight, so they do use all of that vibrations that they feel with their hairs. So that's how they're going to find things. And they also molt like our cockroaches do. So it's going to almost look like a new spider when they molt. And we'll be showing you a spider molt when Jess comes back in here in just a moment. And so that you can kind of see it looks like a whole nother spider. Now, tarantulas are found kind of in a lot of different places around the world. They are also found in the pet trade. So their main importance is that they are going to be food, as well as they're going to help keep our insect populations down. So they have a very important role in our ecosystem. So I'm going to take her back, and Jess is going to come back in here and remind you of who you all saw today.
All right, so really quickly, before we pull the camera back up, here is a molt. All arthropods molt just like this, but this is an example of one from a Chilean rose-haired tarantula. You can see it pretty much looks exactly like the outside of the body. So thank you guys so much for letting us bring out some really cool arthropods to meet today. I hope that you learned something. I think we're going to take questions here in just a minute. We saw 5 different arthropods. We saw an insect, a myriapod, and 3 arachnids, but that is just a really small percentage of the 84% of invertebrates that arthropod makes up. So I think that we're going to throw it back to our host, and I think we're going to answer some questions.
Outstanding, ladies. That was great. Thank you so much. All right, well, we'll start in Redlands, California. If you guys have a question to lead us off, go right ahead.
How many invertebrates do you guys have at the zoo?
How many invertebrates do we have at the zoo? Total or?
Both.
We have different, so we have cockroaches, we have in our exhibit building, and then we have them in our collection.
Mm-hmm.
We have, so I know at least just of our education cockroaches, we have at least 180 of them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them. We have 4 different tarantulas, and then we have 4 different scorpions as well. 3 of one species, and then we have a flat rock scorpion. And then we have our Vinegaroon. So those are all the different invertebrates that we, and our Millipedes.
And our Millipedes.
Yep. So all guys
that we work with anyway.
Very cool. All right, guys. Good question. Good answer. Let's go to Miss Harris's group in Bendo. You guys have a question? Come on up. Everybody has a question.
Can you hear me? Oh, wait.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
We have one coming. We prepared some earlier
Ooh.
after we did some research. Look right into the camera. You're gonna go and get in the camera.
How much hair, like fur or hair, does a spider have?
Well, tarantulas have hair pretty much all over their bodies. So that would be like asking you, like, how many hairs do you have on top of your head? They just have hairs sort of all over.
Yeah. It covers their entire body.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Now, just as a reminder, what do they use the hair for class that might have missed it? Is there anything specific that they utilize their hair to do?
So they have the ability to shoot those hairs off for defense. So they can shoot those, and it kind of feels like a fiberglass, like the stinging of it. And then they also use the hairs to feel vibrations in the ground to find their food.
Very cool. All right, let's head to Miss Wallach's group. You guys have a question? Come on up.
What is the most common type of invertebrates?
Insects. So insects, there are over 1 million species of insects. So you would think like a bug. And you have to think that's just of the ones that we know about. We discover new species pretty regularly. So insects are going to take over the world. Yeah.
And of insects, is there one that's most prevalent in the whole world? A kind even? Not necessarily one species, but like a group?
Beetles, actually. So beetles make up a majority of insect species.
Very cool. Excellent. All right, let's head to Miss Bendo's group. You guys have a question?
How old does a tarantula get?
So they actually have 2 different ages. So Elvira is at least 10 years old that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
So males typically only live to be about 5 years old. So they don't live quite as long, but some species, the females can live up to 20 to 25 years. Mm-hmm. So they live a lot longer.
Excellent. Glad we got that question. All right, let's head to Miss Lumen's group. If you guys have one, come on up. Just need to get your mic demuted, and it doesn't.
Can you hear us?
Yep, we can hear you. Perfect. So many of you.
Why do bees have stripes?
Ooh.
Why do bees? Oh, so bees have stripes probably for the same reason that lots of animals have different colors. It could be camouflage, since it does fly around very bright colored flowers. But since bees tend to be venomous, they can sting you. It could also be what we call a warning color, and that bright yellow combined with that dark black might tell someone like, hey, don't mess with me. I'm really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we see that in a lot of animal groups, actually. Like if you think of a skunk, if you think of some deep water fish, some snakes, with the patterns of colors give you something that, tells you I'm poisonous and stay away. Very cool. All right, let's head back to Redlands. If you guys have a second question.
How did you not get that scorpion sting you?
That's a great question. We actually get that a lot. So emperor scorpions, like I said, are relatively timid. They're not fighters. They're lovers, not fighters. And ours, we've worked with, Stephanie particularly, has worked with them to get them more comfortable with being picked up. You might have noticed when I was holding him, the reason that I put him back down is because he started trying to back up my arm. He's so comfortable with me now that apparently he thinks he can just climb all over me. So it's one of those things where we work with them and we make sure that they understand that they're not in danger and that we're not going to try to eat them. And then once they understand that, they are not very likely to try to sting us or pinch us.
And they also, emperor scorpions are typically a species that's going to use their claws for defense more than they are going to use their stingers because they don't have the strongest venom.
Yeah.
So that's actually the next follow-up I wanted to ask is for the tarantula, for the scorpion. If they were to sting you, if by fluke they were to freak out and attack, like what would happen to you?
It would maybe feel like a bee sting.
Yeah, it would be kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not kill you, which is a lot of we get that question a lot.
Yeah, not kill us.
We don't tend to that could potentially harm us. So.
Perfect. All right, let's head back to Miss Harris's group. You guys have.
What is your favorite mollusk?
Say that one more time.
What is your favorite mollusk?
Oh, my favorite mollusk. Okay, well, mollusks. I love mollusks, first off, but I think that I really like cephalopods, so things like the octopus or the squid. And my favorite is, my favorite would probably be the colossal squid, which is the really, really big giant one that we just found out exists. It lives in the really, really deep ocean, and apparently it gets into fights with sperm whales, which I think is kind of so.
Awesome. For the classes too, if you think about a colossal squid, like look from one end of your class to the other, and the colossal squid is probably longer than your classroom is. So think of it that way. It's very cool. All right, let's go to Ms. Wallach's group. Do you guys have a second one? Or you have three people right at the camera, even better? Go right ahead.
How did you get interested in invertebrates?
How do you get, well, you guys can get interested in invertebrates because we just showed you a whole bunch of them. But I have always really liked them. Even as a little kid, I just knew them as like bugs, and I really liked them. And then in college, I learned a lot more about them because I am getting a biology degree, and I took a whole class all about invertebrates, and I found out how really cool and diverse they are, and just something about it was really, really interesting to me. I don't know why invertebrates.
They're different.
Yeah.
So it's not they're like our creepy crawly creatures, but they still have a really important job. And so it's cool we gain a chance to show off that even though they're not the fuzzy type of animal, that there's somebody that it has a very important job in the world, and that has something that most people aren't going to see because they might be underground or they might be hiding, but we can show people and bring them closer, and then you get to learn all about why we need them.
Yeah.
Excellent answers, ladies. One thing I always like to say with bugs too, for kids especially, go to your backyard. I mean, you might not be able to see lions or tigers or bears, oh my, in your backyard, but there are bugs galore back there of tons of different species wherever you happen to live. So just go and find and explore. All right, let's go to Ms. Bendo's group. If you guys have a second question.
How big do scorpions get?
The emperor scorpion is one of the larger species. So, you know, he was about yay big, and that's about as big as scorpions can get.
Excellent. All right, let's go back to Ms. Lumen's group. You guys have a second question. You guys have 37 second questions, apparently. That's exciting. And you're good to go whenever you're ready.
You can ask it right here, right to the iPad. I smile.
What's a thorax?
That's a great question. We said a lot of big words. Do you want to answer that one?
So that is part of their body. So they have 3 pieces of their body. So if you think of like an ant, where you can see their head on the front, and then that middle section is their thorax, and then their back section is their abdomen. So when you look at a bug that has 3 body parts, it's kind of their middle spot.
We are whipping through these questions, which is great. So I'm going to do another round of questions with each class, but I also want to note we've got some groups watching on YouTube Live. So if you guys want to pass on questions in the chat bar, I can pass them on to Jess and Stephanie, so please do. All right, let's go start again with Redlands. Hi, guys. Any third question?
How big is the insect population compared to the human population?
Not been comparable. You have to think, so if you, let's put it this way. If you took every teeny tiny little insect in the world and put them on a scale, and then took every single person in the world and put them on a scale, the insects would be heavier. So you have to think, even though they're really, really tiny, they make up a very, very large part of our global population. It's kind of hard to even think about, honestly. There's so many of them.
Even though you can't see a lot of them there.
One of my favorite analogies is that if you took all the ants and just the ants in the rainforest in the Amazon, they would weigh about 4 times more than all the mammals, all the birds, all the large animals, all the people put together. So 4 times for just ants. So there's a lot of them. Great.
There's a lot of them.
Let's go back to Miss Harris's group. Yeah, you should be good to go. Oh, or not. I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't know why it's not letting me demute you. There you go. Now you're good.
What is the largest invertebrate?
Oh, that's a trick question, and you don't even know it. So some people say that the colossal squid is the largest invertebrate, but there is another species of an animal called a siphonophore. If you've ever heard of the Portuguese man of war, that's a siphonophore, and it's actually larger than the colossal squid. It's in the ocean, but it's actually made up of a colony of a bunch of different little organisms. So some people say that that's the biggest, but some people say that that doesn't count because it's a bunch of different things, so that the colossal squid is the biggest. So that's actually a question that scientists are still asking themselves every day.
Excellent. Great question then to ask for kids. All right, so let's go to Miss Wallach's group.
You never.
All right, ask him.
What is your favorite insect?
No pressure.
Insect. Do you have a favorite insect? What's your favorite insect?
Probably honeybees.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Because without bees, we would not have. So I would say that our honeybees are probably my favorite, so that we can make sure that we have all of the food that we like to eat.
I like moths. I don't have a great. I think they're cool. So.
Awesome. They're cool. The immortal words. For people who like bees too, we're going to be having a hangout all about bees in about 2 weeks. So come on back. I love the group of 3 kids that ask questions together too, by the way. Bonus points if you can get your entire class to say something in unison. All right, Miss Bendo's group. You guys have a question.
Are tarantulas poisonous?
I'll let you answer that. So tarantulas actually have venom. So there's a difference between the poisonous and the venom. There may be some species of poisonous. I'm not 100% sure. But to have something be poisonous, you have to eat it and get sick. So if you think of like Snow White's poisoned apple. So our tarantulas are actually venomous because when they eat something, they inject a venom. So they bite it and then they inject venom into something. So pretty much all species of tarantulas are venomous. It just depends on the tarantula how potent or how strong the venom is, if it's going to take down something larger, or if it's just going to be for something smaller.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. And then, you know what? We'll wrap up with one more from Miss Lumen's class. If you guys have a question to end us off from someone in the giant room with all those kids, that would be great.
Why is there only one queen bee?
Ooh, good question.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think of a great way to put it. Let's see here. Let's put it this. So, if there were more than one queen bee, you can't have two queens in the same kingdom, right? They would have to go make their own kingdom. So each beehive, you can think of it that way. It's got to have one queen that they think of as very, very important, and that queen is in charge of having all the babies and basically making sure that the hive stays alive. And if you had two of those, you might have way too many babies, and then you would have two queens in one kingdom, and that just doesn't work out in a monarchy. So
that's
the
a great answer for a complicated question. Before we wrap up, is there any last messages you want to share with kids, anywhere they can go to find out more information about the zoo, the invertebrates you have, or anything that you'd inspire them to do to learn more and get excited?
So if you go to our website, virginiazoo.org, we do have information about our animals on there. You can also contact us on there if you have any questions, or if you want to learn anything more about what we do here at the zoo or what kind of animals we have at the zoo. And then you can also always email us and let us know if you thought of a question later.
Or obviously you guys are not in Norfolk, Virginia. So if you've got a zoo by where you're at, zoos are a great place to go if you want to learn something new. And most people who work at a zoo really like invertebrates. So if you want to learn something new, the best thing to do is just to ask questions.
Excellent. All right. So ladies, what we do at the end of every hangout is I'm going to demute everyone's microphone. So boys and girls, if you guys could all get ready to say a huge thank you and goodbye to Jess and Stephanie for joining us today. So is demuted. Awesome, guys. We appreciate all the classes for joining us today. Do learn more. Do check out the zoo's website because it's really great. And we look forward to having you back soon. Jess and Stephanie and the whole zoo team, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right, and we'll see you.